The words hit me like a freight train right there in my own kitchen, honey. We don't need you anymore, Mom. My son Michael stood there in his fancy suit, briefcase in one hand, car keys jingling in the other, looking at me like I was some stranger.
Y'all, I felt all the air leave my lungs at once, and I had to grip the counter just to keep standing. 28 years I raised that boy, worked double shifts at the diner to put him through college, and this is what I get? I let out the longest breath you ever heard and just stared at him, waiting for him to take it back, to say he was just having a bad day at the office. But sweetie, he just stood there checking his expensive watch like my heartbreak was making him late for something more important. Michael, honey, what are you talking about? I managed to whisper, my voice barely audible over the hum of the refrigerator. He wouldn't even look me in the eyes, just kept staring at that granite countertop I'd saved up 6 months to buy him and his wife Jennifer for their anniversary. The house is paid off now, Mom. Jennifer and I can handle everything ourselves. We don't need you cooking for us anymore, cleaning, or, well, we just need our space. The way he said space made it sound like I was some kind of pest that had been crawling around their beautiful home, leaving tracks on their pristine floors. I felt my shoulders just drop like I was carrying the world. And honey, maybe I was. For 3 years since my Harold had passed, I'd been living in their guest room, helping with their twin boys, keeping house while they both worked their high-powered jobs in downtown Phoenix. I thought I was being useful, thought I was earning my keep. Turns out I was just in the way. But what about Tommy and Jake? I asked, thinking of my 7-year-old grandsons who always ran to me after school, who preferred my homemade chocolate chip cookies to anything store-bought. They'll adjust, Michael said, and those 2 words cut deeper than a rusty knife. You know what? I stopped talking for a hot minute, just stood there processing what my own flesh and blood was telling me. The silence stretched between us like a canyon, and I could hear Jennifer upstairs, probably packing up my things already. She never liked me much anyway, always making little comments about my outdated recipes and my old-fashioned ways with the boys. Now she was getting exactly what she wanted, me gone. Where am I supposed to go, Michael? The question came out softer than a church mouse, because deep down, I already knew he had thought this through. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope, thick and official looking. There's a really nice senior community about 20 minutes from here, Sunset Gardens. I've already put down a deposit. My hand shook as I took that envelope, and honey, I could feel those tears starting to sting behind my eyes. A senior community. Like I was some broken down old car he was trading in for a newer model. Before I tell you what happened next, and sweetie, this part is going to absolutely shock you. If you're loving this story, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. You know I get so excited when I see y'all in the comments. Speaking of which, what state are you calling home right now? Drop it down below. And honey, tell me, have you ever had family treat you like you didn't matter? Because your stories help me know I'm not alone in this crazy world. Now, let me tell you what I discovered next, because what they did was about to backfire in the most beautiful way. That night, I sat in my little guest room, well, I guess it wasn't mine anymore, and opened that envelope with trembling fingers. Sunset Garden Senior Living Community. The brochure showed smiling elderly folks playing bingo and doing water aerobics, all looking perfectly content to be shuffled away from their families. The monthly fee made my pension check look like pocket change, but there was a note from Michael saying he'd cover the first 6 months. 6 months? Like that was supposed to make me feel grateful. I couldn't sleep a wink that night, tossing and turning on sheets I'd washed and folded myself just that morning. Every creak of the house reminded me of all the ways I'd made it a home for them. The loose floorboard in the hallway I had nagged Michael to fix for months. The squeaky door hinge I'd finally oiled myself. The night light I'd installed in the boys' bathroom so they wouldn't be scared in the dark. Now I was supposed to just leave it all behind. Around 3 in the morning, I got up to use the bathroom and heard voices coming from Michael and Jennifer's room. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but their door was cracked. And honey, what I heard made my blood run cold. "Finally," Jennifer was saying, her voice full of satisfaction. "I thought she'd never leave. Now we can convert that guest room into my yoga studio like we always planned." Michael's laugh was something I'd never heard before, cold and calculating. "The best part is she'll be out of the way, but close enough that we can still get her to babysit when we need her. Those senior communities have shuttle services." Y'all, I had to cover my mouth from keeping gasping out loud. They weren't just kicking me out. They were planning to use me like some kind of convenient babysitting service when it suited them. 28 years of sacrifice, of putting my son's needs before my own, and this is how little I meant to them? I felt all the sadness drain out of me and get replaced by something entirely different, something that felt an awful lot like determination. The next morning, I woke up with a plan forming in my mind like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Michael was already gone to work. He left without saying goodbye, of course, but Jennifer was in the kitchen, humming while she made herself one of those fancy smoothies with ingredients I couldn't even pronounce. She barely glanced up when I walked in, just kept chopping her organic whatever it was like I was already invisible. "Jennifer, honey, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me." She looked up then, probably surprised by my tone. I'd always been so careful around her, walking on eggshells, trying not to upset the delicate balance of their perfect life. But something had shifted overnight, and I could feel the power in my voice for the first time in years. "What is it, Doris?" she asked, setting down her knife with a little sigh like I was interrupting something terribly important. "How long?" I kept my eyes locked on hers, watching for that telltale flicker that would give her away. And there it was. Just for a second, her composure cracked, and I saw exactly what I was looking for: guilt. "Planning what?" she said, but her voice had gone up an octave and she wouldn't meet my eyes anymore. "Getting rid of me," I said simply. "How long have you two been planning to throw me out like yesterday's garbage?" She straightened up then, putting on that haughty expression she wore whenever she felt cornered. "Doris, that's not fair. We're not throwing you anywhere. We're helping you transition to a more appropriate living situation for someone your age." Someone my age. Like being 68 meant I was ready for the scrap heap. I felt a bitter little laugh escape my lips, and honey, I could see it made her nervous. "Appropriate," I repeated. "You know what I think is appropriate, Jennifer? Honesty. So let me ask you again. How long?"
The silence stretched between us, and I could hear the boys upstairs getting ready for school, their little voices chattering about some cartoon they'd watched. My heart clenched thinking about not being here to make their breakfast, to help them find their missing socks, to kiss their foreheads goodbye before the school bus came. Finally, Jennifer spoke, and her voice was different now, colder, more honest. "Since Christmas," she admitted. "We talked about it after you corrected Tommy's table manners in front of my mother. You embarrassed me, Doris. You make me feel like a guest in my own home." Christmas. 4 months ago. 4 months they'd been planning to get rid of me, smiling to my face while plotting behind my back. I felt my hands start to shake, not with sadness this time, but pure, righteous anger. "I embarrassed you," I said slowly, letting each word hang in the air, "by teaching your son, my grandson, to say please and thank you, by making sure he didn't interrupt adults when they were talking, by doing the job you were too busy to do yourself." Her face flushed red, and I could see I'd hit a nerve. "That's not your job anymore, Doris. They're our children, not yours. You need to learn to step back and let us parent them our way." Their way, which consisted of handing the boys iPads whenever they got restless, ordering takeout instead of cooking real meals, and parking them in front of the TV so Mommy and Daddy could have their wine and their grown-up conversations. I'd bitten my tongue about it for months, but now that I was being kicked out anyway, what did I have to lose? Their way, I said, and honey, my voice was dripping with all that irony. You mean the way where Tommy told his teacher that chicken nuggets were a vegetable? Or the way where Jake wet his bed for a month because you told him monsters weren't real and refused to check his closet? Or maybe the way where they both cried for an hour last week because you were too busy with your book club to take them to the park like you promised. Each word hit her like a physical blow, and I watched her face cycle through shock, anger, and something that might have been shame if she'd been capable of it. But this was Jennifer we were talking about. My daughter-in-law who'd never admitted to being wrong about anything in the 5 years I'd known her. "You have no right to judge my parenting," she said through clenched teeth. "Just because you raised your son a certain way doesn't mean..." "Doesn't mean what?" I interrupted, and I could feel my voice getting stronger with each word. "Doesn't mean I know what I'm talking about? Sweetie, I raised a son who became a successful lawyer, who married a beautiful woman who gave me 2 gorgeous grandsons. But somewhere along the way, I also raised a man who could look his own mother in the eye and tell her she wasn't needed anymore. So maybe you're right. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about." The boys came thundering down the stairs just then, backpacks bouncing, hair still messy from sleep. "Grandma Doris," they called in unison, running straight to me for their morning hugs. I wrapped my arms around them, breathing in their little boy smell of sleep and cartoon dreams, and I felt my heart break all over again. "Where were you yesterday?" Tommy asked, his 7-year-old face serious with concern. "Mom made breakfast, and the eggs were all wrong." Over their heads, I saw Jennifer tighten her jaw. She'd probably burnt them again. She never could get the temperature right on that fancy stove. "Grandma had some things to take care of, baby," I said, smoothing down his cowlick. "But I'm here now." "Are you going to make pancakes?" Jake asked hopefully. "The good ones with the chocolate chips?" I looked up at Jennifer, who was watching this exchange with barely concealed irritation. "I don't think so, sweetheart. Your mama's got breakfast handled, don't you, Jennifer?" The look she gave me could have frozen hell over, but she forced a smile for the boys. "That's right. We have those healthy granola bars you like." Both boys' faces fell. They didn't like those cardboard-tasting things any more than I did, but they were too polite to complain. Well, I taught them that much at least. After the boys left for school, without their usual excited chatter, I noticed, Jennifer and I found ourselves alone again. The house felt different somehow, charged with all the things we weren't saying. "I'm going to pack my things," I announced, standing up from the kitchen table where I'd been sitting. "But I want you to know something, Jennifer. This isn't over." She looked up from her phone where she'd been scrolling through something, probably already redecorating my room in her mind. "What's that supposed to mean?" I gave her a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Oh, honey, you'll find out soon enough." That afternoon, while Jennifer was at her Pilates class and the boys were still at school, I made some phone calls. The first one was to my old friend Maggie, who worked at the county clerk's office. The second was to my nephew Danny, who was a private investigator down in Tucson. And the third? Well, that one was to a lawyer. Not Michael's fancy firm, but a woman named Sarah Chin, who specialized in elder law and had a reputation for being tougher than a $2 steak. You see, sweetie, living in that house for 3 years had given me access to a lot of information. I'd seen the mail that came in, heard the phone conversations, noticed the expensive purchases that seemed to keep multiplying. And being the helpful mother-in-law I was, I'd organized their important papers when they moved into the bigger filing cabinet. I'd even made copies of everything, just to be thorough. They thanked me for being so organized. Turned out, being organized was about to save my behind. That evening, at dinner, takeout Chinese food, of course, Michael came home full of fake cheer, asking how my first day of transition planning had gone. The boys were unusually quiet, picking at their sweet and sour chicken and glancing between their parents and me like they could sense something was wrong. "Oh, it went very well," I said, serving Jake some more rice. "I had such interesting conversations today, made some new friends even." Jennifer shot me a suspicious look, but Michael just nodded, relieved that I wasn't making a scene. "That's great, Mom. See, this is going to be good for everyone." "Absolutely," I agreed. And honey, if he'd been paying attention, he might have noticed the little smile that played around my lips. Oh, change can be such a wonderful thing. The next morning, the morning I'd promised to show up, as the title of the story suggests, I was up before dawn. I got dressed in my best outfit, the navy blue suit I'd worn to Harold's funeral, the one that made me look dignified and formidable. I did my hair and put on my good pearls, the ones Michael's father had given me for our 25th anniversary. If I was going to wage war, I was going to look like a lady while I did it. At exactly 8 o'clock, just as Michael was getting ready to leave for work, the doorbell rang. He looked confused. They weren't expecting anyone, but went to answer it anyway. I heard voices in the foyer, professional and serious, and then Michael called my name in a tone I'd never heard before. "Mom, could you come out here, please?" I took my time walking to the front door, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor like a countdown timer. There, standing in the morning sunshine, were 3 people who were about to change everything. Sarah Chen, my new lawyer, Detective Rodriguez from the Phoenix PD Financial Crimes Unit, and a very official-looking gentleman from the Arizona Department of Revenue. Michael's face had gone white as his expensive shirt. Jennifer appeared at the top of the stairs, still in her silk pajamas, looking like a deer caught in headlights. "Mrs. Patterson," Sarah said, her voice crisp and professional, "we're here to execute the court order you requested." Michael found his voice then, though it came out as more of a croak. "Court order? Mom, what's going on?" I looked at my son, my only child, the boy I'd sacrificed everything for, and felt something cold and final settle in my chest. "What's going on, Michael, is that you made a very big mistake when you told me you didn't need me anymore." Sarah stepped forward, holding a thick folder of documents. "Mr. Patterson, I'm Sarah Chen, representing your mother in a civil action. We have evidence of financial elder abuse, identity theft, and fraud. This is a court order requiring you to produce all financial records related to your mother's accounts, as well as any documents bearing her signature from the past 3 years. The blood drained from Michael's face so fast I thought he might faint right there in his own foyer. Jennifer came rushing down the stairs, her silk robe fluttering behind her like broken wings. "Financial elder abuse?" she sputtered. "That's ridiculous. Doris has been living here rent-free for 3 years. Detective Rodriguez spoke up then, his voice calm but unmistakably authoritative. "Ma'am, I'd advise you not to say anything more without a lawyer present. Mr. Patterson, we need to see those financial records, and we need to see them now." Y'all, I wished I could describe the look on my son's face at that moment. It was like watching someone realize they'd been playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers. All that arrogance, all that certainty that they could just dispose of dear old Mom crumbled away like a house of cards in a windstorm. "Mom," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "you don't understand. I can explain everything." Oh, I understand perfectly. And honey, you could hear the steel in my voice. I understand that while I was grieving my husband of 35 years, you were forging my signature on loan documents. I understand that you used my perfect credit score to get a second mortgage on this house without telling me. And I understand that you've been transferring money out of my accounts for months, thinking I was too old and stupid to notice." Jennifer actually gasped, like she was in some soap opera. But Michael just stood there, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. The man from the Department of Revenue cleared his throat. "Mr. Patterson, we also need to discuss the tax implications of claiming your mother as a dependent while simultaneously using her income to pay for improvements to this property. That's fraud, sir." Now, sweetie, you might be wondering how I figured all this out. Well, let me tell you, being treated like furniture for 3 years gives you a lot of time to observe things. I noticed when mail stopped coming to the house addressed to me. I noticed when my monthly statements got thinner and thinner. And I definitely noticed when Michael started paying for home improvements with cash. Lots of cash, right around the times when my account balances mysteriously dropped. The real breakthrough came when I was organizing their filing cabinet, being the helpful mother-in-law I was, and found copies of loan applications with my signature on them, signatures I'd never written. Now, I'm 68, but I'm not senile, and I sure as hell remember every piece of paper I've ever signed. These weren't my signatures, but they were damn good forgeries, good enough to fool a bank apparently. That's when I called my nephew, Danny, the private investigator. Turns out, when you know what to look for, financial fraud leaves a trail wider than the Grand Canyon. Bank records, loan documents, tax returns. It was all there. A 3-year pattern of my son systematically stealing from me while I cooked his meals and raised his children. The preliminary investigation shows approximately $340,000 in fraudulent transactions. This includes forged loan applications, unauthorized transfers, and falsified tax documents. $340,000. Y'all, I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. That was almost everything Harold and I had saved over 35 years of marriage. Our dreams of traveling, of leaving something for the grandchildren, of living with dignity in our old age. All of it stolen by my own son. But you know what? I didn't cry. Not one single tear. Instead, I felt this calm, cold satisfaction settling over me like a blanket. Justice was coming, and it was going to be beautiful. Michael finally found his voice, though it shook like a leaf in a hurricane. "Mom, please, let me explain. The house needed work, and I knew you'd want to help." "Help?" I interrupted, and honey, you could hear the steel in my voice. "You mean the way I helped by cleaning your house every day, by cooking your meals, by raising your children while you and Jennifer played house? That kind of help?" "That's not fair," Jennifer said, but her voice lacked its usual confidence. "You wanted to help. You insisted on helping." I turned to look at her then, this woman who'd stolen my son's heart and apparently his moral compass along with it. "Oh, sweetie, I did want to help. I wanted to be useful, to feel needed, to be part of my grandchildren's lives. But you know what I didn't want? To be robbed blind while I was grieving my husband's death." Detective Rodriguez stepped forward. "Mrs. Patterson, if you're ready, we'd like you to come down to the station to give your full statement. Mr. and Mrs. Patterson, you'll need to surrender all financial documents and any items purchased with the disputed funds." Michael's lawyer training finally kicked in, but it was too late, too little. "I want to call my attorney," he said. "That's your right," the detective replied. "But until this investigation is complete, all accounts linked to these transactions are frozen. That includes the mortgage on this house." The look of pure panic that crossed Jennifer's face was almost worth 3 years of her condescending remarks about my cooking. Almost. As we prepared to leave, I heard little voices from the kitchen. The boys had come home from school and were wondering where everyone was. My heart clenched hearing their confused chatter, and for just a moment I wavered. They were innocent in all this. They didn't deserve to have their world turned upside down. But then I remembered Michael's cold voice saying, "We don't need you anymore," and my resolve hardened like concrete. Some lessons are hard, but they're necessary. "Grandma Doris?" Tommy appeared in the foyer, his Power Rangers backpack still on his shoulders. "Why are all these people here?" I kneeled down to his level, smoothing his hair the way I'd been doing since he was born. "Sweetheart, sometimes adults make mistakes and other adults have to help fix them. That's what's happening now." "Are you in trouble?" Jake asked, appearing beside his brother like they shared the same brain sometimes. "No, baby." I pulled both boys close for what might be the last hug I'd give them for a long time, but your daddy is. Over their heads, I saw Michael flinch like I'd slapped him. Good. It was time he felt a fraction of the pain he caused me. The next few hours passed in a blur of official statements, document reviews, and legal proceedings. Sarah Chen was everything I'd hoped for in a lawyer. Sharp, thorough, and absolutely ruthless when it came to protecting her clients' rights. She walked me through everything: the forged signatures, the unauthorized loans, the tax fraud, the identity theft. Each revelation felt like another nail in Michael's coffin. "The good news," she said as we sat in her office that afternoon, "is that most of the money is recoverable. The house will have to be sold to repay the fraudulent loans, but your retirement accounts can be restored and you'll be entitled to significant damages." "And the bad news?" I asked, though I thought I already knew. "Your son is looking at federal charges for financial elder abuse and identity theft. He'll almost certainly lose his license to practice law, and he's facing serious prison time." I sat quietly for a moment, processing this information. 3 days ago, I'd been a discarded old woman, shuffled off to a senior center like an inconvenient piece of furniture. Now, I was the victim of a major financial crime, and my son, my only child, was about to lose everything. "Mrs. Patterson," Sarah said gently as we sat in her office that afternoon, "is that most of the money is recoverable. The house will have to be sold to repay the fraudulent loans, but your retirement accounts can be restored and you'll be entitled to significant damages." I asked what the bad news was, although I thought I already knew. "Your son is looking at federal charges for financial elder abuse and identity theft. He'll almost certainly lose his license to practice law, and he's facing serious prison time." I thought about that for a moment. I thought about that 7-year-old boy who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, who cried when I had to go to work, who told me I was the best mommy in the world. Then I thought about the cold stranger who told me I wasn't needed anymore, who'd stolen my life savings while I grieved my husband. "No," I said, and my voice was steady as bedrock. "He made his choice when he decided I was disposable. Now he gets to live with the consequences." The next morning, 3 days after Michael had told me I wasn't needed, I woke up in a hotel room paid for by the Victims Assistance Fund. It wasn't much, just a basic room at a Hampton Inn, but it was mine. Nobody was going to kick me out, nobody was going to make me feel like a burden, and nobody was going to steal from me while I slept. I ordered room service for breakfast, something I hadn't done in 20 years, and ate scrambled eggs that someone else had cooked while I watched the morning news. There was a story about financial crimes against the elderly, and I couldn't help but smile. If things went the way Sarah thought they would, my case might help other families avoid what I'd been through. Around 10 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Jennifer, and she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Doris, please," she sobbed into the phone. "You have to drop the charges. Michael didn't mean for it to happen this way. He was just trying to improve the house for everyone, including you. The boys are asking where you are, where their daddy is. They don't understand why their world is falling apart." I listened to her cry for a full minute before I spoke. When I did, my voice was calm and measured, like I was discussing the weather. "Jennifer, honey, let me tell you what I don't understand. I don't understand how my son could look me in the eye every morning knowing he was stealing from me. I don't understand how he could watch me worry about my finances while he was spending my money on granite countertops and hardwood floors. And I really don't understand how he could tell his own mother she wasn't needed anymore after robbing her blind for 3 years. But the boys," she started. "The boys will be fine," I interrupted. "Children are resilient. They'll adapt to their new circumstances, whatever those might be. The question is, will you?" There was a long silence. Then Jennifer's voice came back, smaller and more defeated than I'd ever heard it. "What do you want, Doris? What will it take to make this go away?" What did I want? For 3 years, all I had wanted to feel was useful, to feel loved, to feel like I mattered to my family. For 3 days, all I had wanted was justice for what they'd done to me. But now, sitting in that hotel room with the morning sun streaming through windows that nobody else controlled, I realized what I really wanted. "I want my life back," I said simply. "I want the money you stole from me. I want an apology that means something. And I want to never, ever hear the words, 'We don't need you anymore,' from anyone ever again." "Doris, please." I hung up the phone. Over the next few weeks, the legal machinery ground slowly but inexorably forward. Michael hired the best criminal defense attorney his firm's money could buy, but the evidence was overwhelming. Bank records don't lie, and forged signatures are hard to explain away. The house went up for sale to satisfy the fraudulent loans. Jennifer's yoga studio dreams went up in smoke, along with her husband's career. The boys came to visit me at the hotel once, accompanied by a social worker and a very subdued Jennifer. They were confused and sad, asking questions I couldn't answer without destroying what was left of their father's reputation in their eyes. "Are you coming home, Grandma Doris?" Tommy asked, his 7-year-old face so serious it broke my heart. "I don't think so, sweetheart," I said, pulling him close. "But that doesn't mean I don't love you. That will never, ever change." "But who's going to make us pancakes?" Jake asked, and I had to turn away so he wouldn't see my tears. "Your mama will learn," I said, though we both knew Jennifer had never successfully made pancakes in her life. As they were leaving, Tommy pressed a drawing in my hand. It was a picture of our family. Him, Jake, Michael, Jennifer, and me, all standing in front of their house. Under it, in his careful first-grade handwriting, he'd written, "I love you, Grandma Doris. Please come back." Y'all, I cried for an hour after they left, but I didn't change my mind. The trial, when it finally came, was a media circus. Local attorney defrauds elderly mother was the headline in the Phoenix New Times. Financial elder abuse case rocks legal community, read the Arizona Republic. I became the face of elder financial abuse in Arizona, which wasn't exactly how I'd planned to spend my retirement, but life has a funny way of giving you what you need instead of what you want. 6 months later, I was living in a beautiful little condo in Scottsdale, paid for with my restitution money. I joined a book club, taken up water aerobics, and even started dating a lovely widower named Frank who appreciated my cooking and never once made me feel like I was in the way. One afternoon, while I was tending my small but perfect garden, my phone rang. It was Tommy, calling from California. "Grandma Doris!" His voice was older now, more mature. "Guess what? I learned to make pancakes." "Well, sort of. They're a little burnt, but they taste okay." We talked for 20 minutes about school and friends and his new baseball team. He didn't mention his father, who was 2 months into his prison sentence. And I didn't ask. Some wounds need time to heal.
At the end of our conversation, he said something that made my heart soar. "Grandma, when I grow up, I want to take care of you. I want you to live with me and never feel sad again." "Oh, sweetheart," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "That's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever said to me." After I hung up, I sat in my garden as the Arizona sunset painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, and I thought about the strange journey that had brought me here. 3 years ago, I'd lost my husband and thought my useful life was over. 8 months ago, I'd lost my home and my family and thought I'd lost everything that mattered. But sometimes, honey, losing everything is the only way to find out what you're really worth. My son had told me they didn't need me anymore. And you know what? He was right. They didn't need me. They'd been using me. There's a world of difference between being needed and being valued, between being useful and being loved. Now I was living a life where I was valued for who I was, not what I could do for other people. I had friends who enjoyed my company, not my cooking. I had activities that fulfilled me, not obligations that drained me. And I had a future that belonged to me alone. The phone rang again, interrupting my thoughts. This time, it was Jake, Tommy's twin, wanting to tell me about the book report he'd written about brave grandmas. Apparently, I was his inspiration. As I listened to my grandson's excited chatter about school and friends and all the wonderful chaos of being 8 years old, I realized something profound. Michael had been wrong about more than just the money. They did need me, not to cook and clean and babysit, but to be their grandmother, to love them unconditionally, to believe in them always, to be the safe harbor they could return to when the world got too big and scary. The difference was, now they needed me on my terms, not theirs. "Grandma," Jake said as our call was winding down, "Mom says maybe we can come visit you for Christmas. Would that be okay?" I looked around my little condo, at the guest room I'd set up just in case, at the photo albums full of pictures of my grandsons, at the life I'd built from the ashes of betrayal and abandonment. "Sweetheart," I said, and honey, you could hear the joy bubbling up in my voice. "Nothing in this world would make me happier." After we hung up, I made myself a cup of tea and sat on my patio, watching the stars come out over the desert. Tomorrow, I had plans: lunch with my book club, water aerobics at the community center, and dinner with Frank, who was making his famous pot roast just for me. My son had said they didn't need me anymore. The next morning,
I showed up with lawyers and police officers and the full weight of justice behind me. I had lost a son, but gained my self-respect. I'd lost a home, but found my independence. I'd lost a family, but discovered my worth. And you know what the most beautiful irony of all was? In trying to get rid of me, Michael had given me the greatest gift possible: my freedom. Freedom to choose who I spent my time with, freedom to live according to my own values, freedom to be loved for who I was, rather than what I could provide. So to anyone listening to this story who's ever been told they're not needed anymore, who's ever been made to feel invisible or disposable or like a burden, honey, let me tell you something. You are needed. You are valuable. You are worthy of love and respect and dignity, and anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't deserve to be in your life. 3 years later, I'm sitting in that same garden, but everything has changed. The boys visit me every summer now, and we've built new traditions, ones that don't involve me being anyone's unpaid housekeeper. We go to baseball games and museums. We cook together because they want to learn, not because I have to feed them. And when they look at me, I see love, not obligation. Michael gets out of prison next month. He's written me letters, dozens of them, apologizing, explaining, begging for forgiveness. I've read every one, but I haven't answered. Not yet. Maybe someday I will, but it won't be because I need his approval or because I'm lonely, or because family is supposed to forgive everything. It'll be because I choose to, on my own terms. Jennifer remarried a nice accountant in San Diego. She sends me Christmas cards now, with pictures of the boys and polite messages about hoping I'm well. She learned to make pancakes, according to Tommy, though he still says mine are better. Some victories are small, but sweet. Frank and I got married last spring in a simple ceremony at the courthouse, with my book club ladies as witnesses. At 71, I thought I was done with love, done with new beginnings. Turns out, I was just getting started. He tells me every day he needs me, not to cook or clean or take care of him, but just to be myself, to share my thoughts and dreams and terrible jokes. That's what real love looks like, sweetie. Not what you can do for someone, but who you are when you're with them. The house in Phoenix sold eventually. I drove by it once about a year after the trial. The new owners had painted it yellow. Harold always wanted to paint our old house yellow, but we never got around to it. I like to think he would have approved. These days, I volunteer at the Senior Legal Aid Society, helping other older folks who've been taken advantage of by family members or caregivers. You'd be amazed how common it is. Children stealing from parents, relatives forging signatures, families treating elderly loved ones like ATM machines. I've helped recover hundreds of thousands of dollars for people who thought they had no recourse, who thought being old meant being powerless. It doesn't. Being old means being experienced, being wise, being done with other people's nonsense. It means knowing your worth and refusing to accept less than you deserve. Last week, I got a call that brought everything full circle. It was a woman named Patricia, 73 years old, calling from Tucson. Her daughter had been stealing from her checking account, and when Patricia confronted her about it, the daughter said those familiar words, "We don't need you anymore, Mom." "What should I do?" she asked, her voice shaking with hurt and confusion. I thought about that morning 3 years ago when Michael stood in his kitchen and broke my heart with those same words. I thought about the choice I'd made to fight back instead of fading away. I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. "Honey," I said, settling back in my favorite chair with the desert sunset painting everything gold, "let me tell you exactly what you're going to do. And honey, they're going to regret the day they decided they could throw you away like yesterday's garbage. Because here's what I learned through all this. When someone tells you they don't need you anymore, they're giving you the most valuable gift possible. They're giving you permission to stop needing them back. And once you realize you don't need their approval, their validation, or their version of love, you become absolutely unstoppable. My son thought he was getting rid of a problem when he kicked me out. Instead, he created a warrior that looks exactly like somebody's sweet little grandmother who makes excellent chocolate chip cookies and who will absolutely destroy anyone who tries to take advantage of vulnerable people. The next morning after that phone call from Patricia, I showed up at her daughter's house with a briefcase full of legal documents and the phone number for the best elder law attorney in Tucson, just like I'd promised. Because that's what we do now. We show up, we fight back, we protect each other, and honey, we always, always get the last word.
Y'all, that's my story. From the kitchen where my son broke my heart to the garden where I rebuilt my life stronger than ever. If you're listening to this and you're going through something similar, remember, you are not alone. You are not powerless. And you are definitely, absolutely, completely worth fighting for. Now tell me in the comments, what would you have done? And don't forget to subscribe because Mama's got more stories to tell. And trust me, they just keep getting better. The truth is, sweetie, being told you're not needed anymore isn't the end of your story. It's just the beginning of the chapter where you finally learn what you're really worth. And let me tell you, that chapter is going to be absolutely beautiful.